Hey everyone, my name is Nurilov, and I'm here with the internet weather for this week. And we start with the top 10 most pro ports. This is our study of internet activity and possible exploitation or reconnaissance activity that's happening on the internet. We look at it to see which ports are of interest by being scanned the most. And as I look at the top 10 ports, we see a lot of ports that we kind of see all of the time. There's RDP, Telnet, SMB, NTP, things like that. We're very familiar with them. So this week I decided to look at the next 10 most pro ports. And when looking at it, there's something that jumped out a little bit. It's port 10250 TCP. It jumped up like 400 places from last week, where it was last week in terms of interest in this port. And I decided to take a little bit of a closer look into it. And prior to this, I didn't really remember what this port had to do with. However, after I looked into it, I found out a little bit more. So this is what the scanning activity looks like for the past, I think, 90 days. So this is the number of flows on this port, 10250 TCP. And you could see that earlier in the year, we see spikes here and there, and there's people looking for it. But really, just in the past week or so, there's been a lot more scanning activity that's been fairly consistent and fairly high. So that means that something probably has changed on this port. I think this port is related to the Kubelet API. It's part of Kubernetes. And recently being sometime in January here, January 28th or something like that, a new CVE was assigned for an installer of Kubelet. And you could see here some dates of when a patch was created and released to account for this thing. And you could see basically the scanning activity. It doesn't, I would say, I don't know what you guys think. It doesn't seem like it's all.
I said nothing lines up here real good. So that's interesting that it took so much time from reporting to attacking,
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly. To me, it means that it's possibly not directly related, or it could mean that for this particular adversary or whoever is doing the scanning, it could be security researchers, they're kind of just coming up to speed with this port as being of interest and trying to do this kind of enumeration. So I think it could go either way. I think probably both conditions could be, both assumptions could probably be accurate. Now, looking into it a little bit more, I also want to find out, like, what is it? What is the exploit, or what is the reconnaissance on this 10250 TCP? And so when I looked into it, I looked into it by doing two things. What does the internet say? What can I find through search engines? And what does the honeypot say? Like, so when people are actually connecting on this port, what does the traffic look like? So let's look at the honeypot piece first. So in the honeypot, over the last 90 days, we have about 37 IP addresses in 10 different countries connecting. We do a little bit of protocol detection on the honeypot to see who connects how. You could see something very interesting here. There's only 57 events, so these percentages are very interesting. But like 45% of the stuff was HTTP scanning. If you actually go back and look what's supposed to be running on 10250, it's supposed to be SSL. So this could just be discovery scanning. I also took a look in Shodan and to see what's usually available on this port. And there are a lot of proxies or HTTP proxies. So it might be that this is a very common HTTP, like forwarding or proxy port used out there by multiple different hosting providers. And the other thing that's pretty surprising, but not too surprising if you watch Star Trek all the time, is the RDP scanning activity on this port. And this RDP scanning activity, we're actually seeing it on every port all of the time. So if you have RDP open to the internet and you're using like a unique port that's not 3389, just be aware that there are some scanners, they're usually coming out of Europe or Russia, and they're scanning all of the time on every single port for RDP services. So if you're using like a special port to protect your RDP, just be aware. It's a little bit of a side issue, but be aware that won't protect you. And there is a lot of brute forcing going on if you're running RDP on any port. So you should try to refrain from doing that as much as possible. And of course, there's a little bit of other unknown traffic and SSL. So the honeypot kind of points us into different directions. But when we use, just searching on Google or searching what other people know about it, we learn that since 2018, this Kubernetes kubelet issue has been known, very well publicized, and there's been scanning on this port probably since 2018. And what is the problem? The problem is you can actually do unauthenticated remote code execution, so they call it unauthenticated RCE, and you can run any command on these servers. And a lot of these are actually being co-opted for cryptocurrency mining, and we've seen that with a wide variety of vulnerabilities lately. It could be you have an SSH server with a weak password. You will get cryptocurrency mining malware on it. You have an F5. You will get cryptocurrency mining malware on that if you're not patched to the latest levels. And pretty much, anything out there that is like a Linux server that's always up, you should expect that there's going to be this cryptocurrency mining threat coming through. But in this case in particular, this has been a known issue. And the way it's been addressed is that port 10250, it's not supposed to be open to the internet. And in a lot of places, it's not going to be. So if you're using like cloud hosting or like a Docker image or something like that, most likely this port will remain hidden. But there's this one installer called OpenShift Installer, and that's what this CVE is about, CVE 2021-2198. It actually exposes this port for about an hour. And during that hour, while it's installing the Kubernetes system or this kubelet, while you're deploying your cluster, that potentially could give the adversary enough time to sneak in there and do like an RCE and possibly run cryptocurrency mining. So very likely, if we look at this pattern now, it kind of makes a little bit more sense where people before were maybe looking for it and then stopping to look for it. But now there's this more persistent scanning that's going on that's constantly looking for devices to make sure the bad guys like catch them as fast as they pop in. So the best thing to do, obviously, is make sure if you're using this OpenShift installer, you're just aware of how that process works and that your devices are always in the, in a protected enclave, or you're using a firewall or ACL if you're deploying in the cloud. Make sure you have that configured or you're thinking about it, even if you're just deploying a solution. No matter if you patch this or you're using a different installer or a different product altogether, just always be aware when you're deploying out there in the cloud or anywhere on any server you put out there on the internet, there's that moment where it might not be configured securely. And you just have to be aware of that and really set up a firewall policy that protects that server from access by anyone except you. Because you don't want to have default settings be the key to your undoing. Somebody could implant this backdoor into your server, basically, and you might think you're secure and safe and you have a firewall policy later, but you'll always have this malware running there, which is something to be aware of.
If you could go back, that little snippet of curl that you have there, is this something that was found as the researchers see, this is the specific command that people were using to see if they found a vulnerable machine, this little hello world?
Yeah, this is basic. Yeah, that's it. So this is what the security researcher discovered if you read that medium.com article. Running that curl command against the test server will actually create a file called hello world on the system. And it's that easy. And we've seen a lot of adversaries, even with all of the latest vulnerabilities, they're adapting quickly, and then they're co-opting those servers to do cryptocurrency mining or join cryptocurrency mining pools to mine for Bitcoin or other things or other kind of crypto. And this seems to be a big trend. It's been a big trend for probably 2 to 3 years now, and there's no sign that it's going to go away. And you might think, what's the big deal? But in essence, these adversaries, you're kind of helping them to procure Bitcoin or another crypto currency. And when they procure that cryptocurrency, they can actually do other things with it. And cryptocurrency actually, especially in the last few months, it's had a lot of value assigned to it. So, it's probably a potentially good money-making operation for the bad guys, and it's really no sweat off their back to do this, because they can just, they could put this out there. It's completely automated from their point of view. You might not notice, and they'll get a lot of value in terms of the cryptocurrency that they generate. So moving on, this is the top 10 most sources probing report. And in this report, we're kind of looking for botnet activity. And the way we do it is by looking at how many devices are scanning one port in a concerted effort. So they're doing it all together, and they're trying to reach out to that port all at the same time. It doesn't mean that it's a botnet, but it does mean that there's some sort of coordinated activity. So looking at this activity over the past 30 days, we can see something interesting as it relates to scan activity on port 1200 UDP, in that I think you guys can notice it. The number of devices that are doing the scanning or being detected, it's kind of like these moments in time. So there's something that happened around 19th, and then something a little bit bigger that happened around March 23rd, and something that's a lot bigger on March 29th. And you could see the, I would say this is like a geometric progression of the number of devices, 2,000 devices, 4,000 devices, and I don't know, this is kind of more exponential, I guess. And then 22. I can
say they're testing the waters here, right? They get a little bit, then a little bit, then a little bit, now let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little hard to say if it's a botnet at this point in time. I didn't have I didn't have a chance to do like a ton of research on port 1200 UDP to see what it is. I think, John, you pointed out it could have been in the past it's been associated with some Trojans and possibly like Half-Life or gaming services like that. But these are like really old, and possibly there's a resurgence of this. It's hard to say if it's a threat yet, or if it's a botnet, or if it's just a new type of device that has this odd behavior of generating this kind of traffic. But it's certainly something that this is the type of thing that we zoom in on and kind of watch to see if it develops into a more dangerous or bigger trend in the future, to see if we can understand it better. All right, with that, that's all I have for the internet weather this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing about some of the new developments that we're seeing in cyberspace. And if you have any questions or ideas or recommendations for what we could look at next, please don't forget, you can feel free to comment in the section below. And if you have more information about port 1200 UDP, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Thank you.